Are you a journalist or a camera guy? So why are you holding the camera? You should have a camera guy.
Imagine you were sharing the football pitch with Zlatan Ibrahimović. Not the goals, not the trophies, but the presence. Waiting in the stadium tunnel, just to be standing next to the almost 2-meter big giant, whose only goal is to humiliate and defeat you. The way the stadium feels heavier when he walks onto the grass. The way defenders stop talking and start thinking. And now imagine this. Despite all of that just said, you decide you're going to challenge him. Not just mark him, not just defend, but test him. Football history is full of brave players just like this. It's hard at the top, and everyone will challenge you. But some lessons are only learned the hard way. Today we're looking at the players who tested Zlatan Ibrahimović, and failed. Miserably, I might say. Zlatan Ibrahimović was never just another footballer. He was always different, and hated to be normal. You could even say he was a psychological event. A study case for how to always remain true to yourself. Before the first touch, before the first duel, before the first word, he entered matches already inside every coach and defender's head. Most great players beat you with skill, but Zlatan wanted to beat you before kickoff. Because the thing is, Zlatan didn't react to pressure. He thrived on it. If you respected him, he would dominate you. If you disrespected him, he would make sure the entire world remembered your mistake. And the worst part? He kinda enjoyed it. You could see it in his eyes. It made him think of his youth days in Malmö, Sweden, where he, as a Bosnian/Croatian immigrant, learned playing football in the streets, the same streets where he was taught to never back down, where respect is earned, not given. Let's start with the first man who challenged Ibra and found out.
Staying on this Milan thing, I've had the opportunity to interview Zlatan, and this was just recently, less than a year ago. And I asked him, because in his book, he documents this scuffle that you guys had at training. I asked him what happened, and he said that, one challenge from him, you kind of reacted, and then he says, before you know it, we went at each other, and he says, he came at me. And he describes you as a heavyweight boxer, championship.
This American beast with Nigerian roots never backed down. In the land of opportunities and winners, he was afraid of no one. Physically extremely dominant, broad-shouldered, young and brave. At AC Milan in 2010, Onyewu was one of the most imposing figures in the dressing room, a defender built entirely for confrontation. And when Zlatan Ibrahimović arrived, tension was inevitable. Both men played on the edge, both believed in dominance, neither backed down. What followed became one of the most infamous training ground incidents in modern football. During a heated AC Milan training session in 2010, Zlatan flew into a reckless challenge on Onyewu. It was late, it was unnecessary, and it crossed a line. Onyewu didn't walk away. He grabbed Zlatan by the neck. What followed wasn't a scuffle, it was a full-blown fight. Headbutts, punches, bodies crashing to the ground. Zlatan would later describe the moment as life and death. In the chaos, Onyewu, the physically imposing American defender, threw Zlatan to the floor and pinned him, shocking teammates who rushed in to separate them. The consequences were real. Zlatan suffered a broken rib. Alexandre Pato later confirmed how brutal the incident was, recalling how strong Onyewu was, but Zlatan's ego had something else in mind. Zlatan himself admitted something rare. He started it, but he met someone who didn't back down, someone whose strength matched his ego. The tension never truly disappeared, and just a few months later, Onyewu was loaned out to Dutch club FC Twente, partly to ease the atmosphere inside the squad. The message was clear: you can challenge Zlatan, but when ego meets strength, nobody walks away untouched. Onyewu tested Zlatan's physical limits. Zlatan learned respect. Marco Materazzi built his career on confrontation. He didn't just defend, he provoked. He pushed opponents to the edge, mentally first, physically second. And years before this story reached its climax, Materazzi had already crossed Zlatan Ibrahimović. Back in 2006, during a heated match between Juventus and Inter, Materazzi flew into what Zlatan later described as a killer tackle. The challenge injured Zlatan, forced him off rhythm, off balance, out of control. At the time, nothing happened. No confrontation, no revenge, just memory. But here's the thing, Zlatan Ibrahimović never forgot. Fast forward to 2009, the Milan derby. Inter versus AC Milan, one of the most intense city derbies in the world. The city split between red and blue. the tension already unbearable, newspapers writing about this days in a row. And this time, Zlatan was wearing red and black. During a physical confrontation, Zlatan stepped into Materazzi. Not late, not accidental. He drove his knee straight into Materazzi's chest. The impact was brutal. Materazzi collapsed. He was forced off the pitch and taken to the hospital for treatment. The stadium reacted instantly. Shock, confusion, outrage. This wasn't a normal foul, this felt deliberate. And years later, Zlatan confirmed exactly that. In interviews, Zlatan admitted the truth. This wasn't instinct, it was revenge. He revealed that he had waited 4 years for the right moment. 4 years. He remembered the tackle from 2006, remembered the injury, remembered the feeling of being powerless, and when the opportunity finally arrived, he took it. "I waited," Zlatan said, "and when I got the chance, I reacted. Not impulsively, intentionally." This incident became world news, not because it was violent, football has seen worse, but because of what it revealed. Zlatan didn't just play matches, he stored them. He remembered moments, carried grudges, collected debts. Materazzi had tested him once, and 4 years later Zlatan answered. Not with words, and not with goals, but with a moment that reminded everyone who he was. Marco Materazzi believed pressure could break anyone. But Zlatan didn't break, he waited. Materazzi tested Zlatan's memory. Zlatan reminded him that nothing was forgotten.
You're even more ugly in television than reality.
This wasn't a battle on the pitch, it was a collision of philosophies. When Zlatan Ibrahimović joined Barcelona in 2009, he arrived as one of the most complete strikers in world football. A proven winner, a league conqueror, a personality that filled rooms. Barcelona didn't sign Zlatan to adapt him, they signed him to complete the puzzle. At first it worked, goals came, assists followed, trophies were won, but beneath the surface, something was already breaking. Pep Guardiola was not a confrontational manager. He didn't shout, he didn't humiliate, and instead he withdrew. As the season progressed, Guardiola began speaking to Zlatan less and less. Instructions stopped coming. Conversations ended. Zlatan noticed immediately. For a player like him, silence was worse than criticism. It wasn't tactical, it was personal. Then came the tactical change. Lionel Messi moved into the false 9 role. The system adjusted, and Zlatan was pushed wider, away from the center, away from influence, away from importance. He wasn't dropped, he was sidelined. To Guardiola, it was evolution. To Zlatan, it was exile. Eventually, Zlatan snapped, not publicly, privately. He confronted Guardiola. He questioned the silence, the decisions, the lack of respect. Guardiola listened and said almost nothing. That moment ended everything. Because Guardiola demanded obedience and Zlatan demanded acknowledgement. There was no middle ground. Years later, Zlatan would describe his time at Barcelona with one unforgettable line: "I was driving a Ferrari and Pep parked me like a Fiat." It wasn't about arrogance, it was about identity. Zlatan felt reduced, minimized, ignored, and for a player built on presence, that was unforgivable. Guardiola built systems, Zlatan broke them. Guardiola valued control, Zlatan valued freedom. Neither was wrong, but they could never coexist. By the end of the season, Zlatan was gone. Loaned out, then sold. Barcelona moved on. Guardiola won, but the scar remained. This wasn't ego versus ego, it was control versus individuality. Guardiola tested Zlatan's submission, Zlatan refused, and sometimes that's the only ending possible. When Zlatan arrived in the MLS, the narrative was clear. He's finished. He's here for marketing. He won't survive. Zlatan heard all of it and decided to write a full-page ad in the LA Times with the simple words, "Los Angeles, you're welcome." And on his debut, he scored a 40-yard volley, then a header. Then he turned to the cameras and said it again, "Los Angeles, you're welcome." Defenders tried to bully him. Crowds tried to mock him. It didn't matter. Zlatan dominated the league with ease. Not because the defenders were bad, but because they tested someone who didn't see them as equals. The MLS tested Zlatan's relevance. Zlatan took the spotlight. Here's the truth. Zlatan didn't play football to fit in. He played football to stand above. He didn't need acceptance. He didn't need approval. When players tested him physically, he fought back. When they tested him mentally, he humiliated them. When they tested his ego, he made it personal. Zlatan wasn't sensitive. He was aware. And once you crossed the line, there was no coming back. Football is built on confidence. Every player believes they belong. But Zlatan Ibrahimović existed outside that belief. He didn't ask for space, he took it. And when players tested him, they didn't just lose the duel. They became part of his myth. If you enjoy football stories that go deeper than highlights, subscribe to the channel, because this era deserves to be remembered.